Hello everyone, this is GamerZ here, and today we'll be continuing our tutorial on how to create an infinite runner. Now, for a quick recap of what we've already done is we were able to create our player, our platform, and the saw in the background, which should interact with the player. Now, what we're going to do in this part of the tutorial is put in the events that enables the interaction between the player and the saw that's in the background, and for the player to be destroyed if he were to fall off of the platforms. Also, we're going to be putting in the events that makes the platform spawn randomly in random locations off screen, right? So let's get straight to it. Now let's first start with the random spawning of the platforms, alright, just to get this part out of the way first. So we're going to add a sub event to the event that we created earlier, which is player is alive, which is player alive equal 1. We're going to add a sub event here and say every second, and let's see, we could say every 1 second for now, right? Then we're going to say system create object platform. Right, now we need to get our coordinates for it to be created at, right? So the best way to do this, which is why we enable the snap to grid, this will make it easier for us to get the coordinates that we want it to spawn at. Alright, so let's go ahead and get that right now. So if you notice, this is where the original platform that we're going to jump at is going to be at, right? So let's go ahead and see where this is. Alright, so its position for the X is 640 and the position for the Y is 160, right? Now the Y is what's going to be changing here, not the X. Okay, so we want it to be spawning at about, let's say, 96 from 160, right? So what we're going to do is set up a random event. How we're going to do this? Don't worry, I'm going to go ahead and show you that. First, let me go ahead and see if I can remember this here. 640. Okay, so the X should be 640. This will never change, but the Y, however, will be 160 and I believe 94. Right, let's go ahead and check that once more just to be sure. Sorry, let me go ahead and take this out just to be sure. Okay, so it was 96. So we are going to set up a random calculation for the Y right here. But first, let me go ahead and show you this expression. It's called floor. So what floor does is bring it to the closest whole number, right? So what that means is, if you were to set up a regular random calculation for the Y right here, it could put in decimal places, and we don't want any decimal places when it is spawning, right? Because that would make it a bit clunky. So let's go ahead and put floor, then inside of the open bracket you put random, and then we're going to say 160. I'm sorry, let's start with the lowest number, which is 96, to 160. So it will randomize the Y value from 960, I'm sorry, from 96 to 160, and it's going to always select a whole number, which is why we have the floor here. So it is floor, open bracket, random, 96 to 160, close bracket, close bracket, right? Because we open the brackets inside of the floor, which is why we have two different open brackets here. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how that looks. Let's test it. Alright, so you can see it now randomly spawning off of the screen. However, I am noticing that it is being shown in front of the saw, and we don't want that. We want it to be behind the saw, right, so that it can look better. So let me go ahead and show you how to get that done. Now we're going to add another sub event here and say on platform created, which is down here on created, we're going to say set the z value to an object. So you're going to say set position to another object. I'm sorry, not position. Move to object. Right, so then it would be behind the saw. Now that that's done, it should be going behind the saw for each platform that is created. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Now as you can see, it is definitely going behind the saw now, so it looks a lot cleaner. Alright, now we need to set up an interaction with both the saw and when the player falls off of the screen. Okay, now we're going to add a sub event again. Let's say that on player collision with another object, the saw, click done. Then we're going to say destroy player. And now if he were to stop jumping or didn't keep up fast enough with the game, he would then hit the saw and die. So let's go ahead and see if this is true. And there it is. He's now destroyed. So the player is destroyed, but the game is still playing. Now we are going to go ahead and fix that. Okay, so now we're going to just go ahead and add an event and say compare variable players alive is equal to 0. Right, and then here where the player collided with the saw, we're going to say set value player alive to 0, because now the player is dead. The player cannot be alive and this cannot be happening. Right, so if we were to just leave it as this, the platforms wouldn't spawn or any of this none of this would be happening. However, the saw would still be moving. Right, we want everything to freeze on the screen when the player dies. So what we're going to do is on the side of players alive equals 0, add an action that says set time scale, and then we're going to say 0. When we put the time scale to 0, this will pause everything that is happening on the screen, and it will pause all of the time related events in the game, and everything works off of time, right, because everything is played based off of ticks in the game. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if this happens. And there you have it. Everything is paused. But now that everything is paused, we want to be able to restart the game. right? So we're going to add an event that enables us to restart. But first we're going to have to add a different object. Alright, so let's go ahead and add the game over object. And it's going to be a text object. Alright, and then we're going to insert it here. Let it say game over by editing the properties beside text. Let's say game over. And we're going to align it to the center. And let's make it a bit bigger so that you can see it properly. Let's say around 24. Alright, and then we're going to add a little bit more text. Let's say no, let's go ahead and add a different text object. This one will be the restart. This one will tell the player what to do in order to restart. Alright, so let's go ahead and put in the description for the text. So it's going to say touch. Let's say press any key to restart. And now when the player sees this, he'll know that when he presses a button, the game will restart. Alright. Let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. Make this longer. And center align it. There we go. Now we're going to make these invisible at the start. So you're going to scroll down and look for initial visibility and then click invisible. And the same goes for the press to restart. Invisible. Now when the game starts, the player won't be able to see this. Now we're going to add some actions here to enable the player to be able to restart. Right? So because it's invisible, we want to make it visible now that the player is dead. So we're going to come here and say set visible to visible for both text objects. And now that this is possible, you'll be seeing the game over and click any button to restart when the player dies. Alright, now let's go ahead and test to see if this is true. And there you go, game over, press any key to restart. Now the text comes up, but we're not able to press anything and it restarts. But don't worry, we're going to add that in with some more events. So let's go ahead and add, we're going to have to add the keyboard object. And just give it some time. Now that it's added, we're going to come back to the event sheet and say on any key pressed. Alright, but this is not all we want to happen. So you're going to have to press C to add another condition and say player alive is equal to 0 Then we're going to come here and say System, Restart Layout. But we can't do this and hope for it to work, because it will restart, but the player equals 0 will still be true because we didn't set it back. So we're going to have to set back player alive is equal to 1. And here we're going to say, let me go ahead and explain. Right here beside player alive is equal to 1, we're going to add the action for all the text objects, set visible, invisible. And before we start, we're going to add one more sub event to the player is alive events. And we're going to say player is outside of layout, then player is destroyed. And we're going to copy this over to here and set player alive to 0. Alright, now let's go ahead and test to see if all of this is happening. Alright, so first of all, still able to jump towards the platforms. Second, let's test, and there we go, we died. But that's not how we want to die, right? So we're going to have to add a little barrier to the top part there, so we don't die when we go up. But yes, the game over screen did come up, and let's see if we can press any key to restart. It restarted, but guess what happened? The game is still paused because the timescale is still set to 0. So we're going to have to set it to 1 now that the player is alive. So the easiest way to do that is where it says player is alive, you're going to say set timescale to 1. Now this would be good if you're not going to be adding anything else to the game like a pause button. But what you can do to make it even easier is to say that whenever we restart, we set it back to 1. And this is going to make it more possible for you to add a pause button if you want to do that in the future. Alright, now let's go ahead and fix the issue with our player going off of the screen when he goes to the top. I'm just going to add a little sprite here. Let's say it's going to be 32 by 32. Let's give it a little color. Let's change the origin point to top left. And now we're going to just put this right here. And we're going to make it solid using a behavior. So now the player won't be able to go past this point on the screen. But it's going to be a bit difficult if it's that close, right? So let's move it up a little bit. And now the player won't be able to come off of the screen if he hits this, right? So let's go ahead and see if this works. And there you go. The player can't jump above the layout. So he's safe to jump as much as he wants right here. Alright, now let's test to see if the bottom part of the layout is working. And there we go. Now let's test to see if the timescale problem has been fixed. as you can see, it is fixed. And now we have an infinite runner, people. This has been GamerZ. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Thanks for watching.